Hello, and welcome to the first episode of First Chair Fantasy. I'm Lucy, and joining me in the second chair today is the very lovely Jon Lock.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm holding a very hot coffee.
You are, so yeah, we don't want to distract you too much. As many of you know, Jon and I make comics and games, along with our partners in crime, Nick and Ali, as part of Big Punch Studios. But as many of you may not know so much, I came to comics quite late in life, and am actually at heart a fantasy novel geek.
Nerd.
I am lower than comic geek. I am fantasy novel geek. I mean, I experiment with sci-fi on the side, but mostly it's fantasy novels.
I think we first met when I was stealing your lunch money, actually.
Oh, yes. As if you could steal my lunch money.
Sorry, I'm like...
As if I had any money.
I know. I'm just a filthy student. Anyway.
Anyway, this is going to be me getting to talk about my geek home territory, my geek comfort zone, and hopefully dragging a few other people down with me across the episodes.
And me just being along for the ride.
Yeah,
really.
Because why not?
It feels wonderful.
You need something to do today.
Yeah, it feels wonderful. I'm here. I've got a coffee.
Yeah.
I can help and hinder.
It all works out.
Yeah.
Anyway, today we are discussing Brandon Sanderson's Elantris. This is the first novel that Brandon Sanderson released. It was released 10 years ago. I think it was the 10th anniversary, like last month, actually.
Really?
It was, but actually only in the US. Like, the UK release was a lot later. So I think it took the UK a little while to work out who he was and allow him space on our shelves.
So his first proper novel?
His first published novel. Like, there are plenty of other novels that have not seen the light of day.
But so was it... Did it get a later release in the UK after the success of Mistborn, which was his more popular series?
I got the impression that Mistborn got a release because of the success of his finishing of The Wheel of Time.
But he only got that job because of Mistborn.
Yes, but I think that was the US, because of course Robert Jordan and his wife Harriet McDougal were American as well, so we're seeing his US success. But yeah, I did not hear of or see anything of Brandon Sanderson until he completed The Wheel of Time.
Okay.
And actually Elantris was the last of the novels that were published when I started reading his work that I read, even though it was the first novel. I think it probably had something to do with the fact that it looks much more generic than his other novels, I'd say. We'll discuss Mistborn at some point in the future, I'm sure, but Mistborn has a very twisted take on the classic fantasy tropes, and Elantris looks a lot more generic. But, as it turns out, is not. And you should never judge a book by a cover, I guess. Especially when all the covers are exactly the same style in the UK.
The covers are very nice.
They are wonderful. This one has a real green theme going on.
Yeah, the perfect thing to be talking about in a podcast. Yes. But yeah, so how do we begin?
Well, I thought you might like to read the blurb on the back, mostly because you haven't read this book in a while and you might need a quick reminder.
Yes.
As to what actually happens.
Gentle listener, I have read this book. It's been a while. I'm kind of going to be playing catch-up today. Going to just see what I can remember. Okay, so Elantris, Elantris.
Yes, although I have heard Sanderson himself pronounce it Elantris.
Elantris.
I don't know if that's just an American accent or he meant to put a U in there somewhere. But yeah,
okay.
Elantris. I'm happy with Elantris.
Okay, so that's a bit of the sales pitch at the top. So... Elantris was a place of glory. The capital of... Oh, God, no. Oh, yeah, words here. Aralon, Shard, Elantris,
This is a thing of... Generally, Brandon Sanderson is pretty good at making fantasy names that are actually legible in English. I'd say this is... Well, I guess as his earliest foray into this, he wasn't quite as good at it. Do your best.
Well,
it'll be fun. It'll be fun hearing how you try and pronounce things.
It's that normal thing where you read, certainly in fantasy books, you read these words and you're okay with it in your head.
Yeah.
It's like for the longest time in the Harry Potter books, I thought Hermione was Hermione.
Yeah, I thought the same. I'd never heard the name Hermione.
Yeah, so. Sheltered childhood. Yeah. Okay, anyway, Elantris was a place of glory. The capital of Aralon, the home to people transformed into magic-using demigods by the Sheod. But then the magic failed. Elantris started to rot, and its inhabitants turned into powerless wrecks. And in the new capital... K?
K?
Is that what put... Oh, yeah, okay. And in the new capital, K, close enough to Elantris for everyone to be reminded of what they've lost, a princess arrives. Serene is to be married to unite Teod and Arelon against the religious imperialists of Fjordell. But she is told that Rowden, her husband-to-be, is dead. Determined to carry on the fight for Teod and Arelon's freedom... I don't remember it being this hard. Serene clashes with the High Priest Hrathen. If Hrathen can persuade the populace to convert, Fjordell will reign supreme. But there are secrets in Elantris. The dead and the ruined may yet have a role to play in this new world. Magic lives.
Yeah, well done.
I wasn't imagining...
Good try.
I didn't imagine that would be that hard. I can remember more of the character names in the Mistborn series than this, and...
There tend to be one syllable in the Mistborn series.
Yeah. It was a bit wordy.
Yeah.
Kind of a bit of a high fantasy trope.
Very much so, yes. Yeah.
But it's always
this is what I said when I thought, looking at Sanderson novels, before I realised the scope we were actually talking about here. When we talk about Sanderson novels, he seems to just poop one out every couple of months.
The man is prolific.
He is.
Yeah.
But this is why I thought this was a lot more generic than it is, because, I mean, it's a classic thing of fantasy novels, names you can't discuss with other people because nobody knows how to pronounce them.
Yeah.
Often there's too many vowels, or all the consonants are sort of struggling to stay together for safety in one end of the word or something.
Yeah. But also, I've worked in a few bookshops in my life, and predominantly I've gravitated towards working in the sci-fi and fantasy section. I'm very lucky in that regard. But how do you stand out on the shelf when the blurb for every fantasy book ever, I don't care if it's the best one in the world or the worst one, is always like the assemblage of Throndu gathered to, push back the forces of Dark Jon and his capital princeling army of Scarbors, and it's like...
We should write that.
Yeah,
sounds great.
I love that book, it's one of my favourites, but like, the harrowing of Undulin, and it's like, it's just like throwing a Scrabble bag at the table.
It is, and I think there's a real skill to an author being able to come up with words that sound fantastical, but are also mundane enough to be usable.
Okay.
And I'm not entirely certain that Sanderson got it in this particular novel.
Okay, but like, as first novels go...
I mean, it's not bad.
No.
I mean, we're here talking about it.
No, I enjoyed it.
I mean, I'd like to maybe state for the record now that I do really love this book.
Yes.
This is quite a well-thumbed copy that I am holding here.
Yeah, because you're a big reader
I am,
of stuff.
yes.
I'm not. I tend to read it once and never touch it again. Unless it's a comic. I'll read comics over and over and over again. But a book, it's a one...
We see it's exactly the opposite with me. I will quite rarely reread a comic, but I'll happily read it once. But then it's kind of done. Although I do reread Next Wave whenever I need cheering up.
Next Wave,
but that's another story.
That's a story for another day, yeah.
But anyway, yes, so Elantris, what can you remember about the plot? Anything that stands out?
Is this a quiz?
Yes.
Now?
No, well, maybe not, because it's been actually a little while since I read it as well.
Okay, what I remember is... Now, okay, I guess there's a little caveat. Like, anyone listening who is even remotely familiar with Brandon Sanderson may be aware of, should we just call it charitably, the bigger picture?
Yes, we will probably put a spoiler warning up later.
Yeah,
and when we actually come to discuss the bigger picture.
So I go into this knowing that there's more going on.
Yeah.
I think it was after I'd read Mistborn that I realised there was more going on. I think we discovered it together.
Yes, yeah. I watched an interview with him, and someone asked one question.
Yeah.
That threw the whole thing open for me, and suddenly...
Yeah, because...
Yeah.
So, so like trying to cast all that out of my mind, just going into this book. Okay, so there is, as we said on the back of the book, which I'm referring to now for reference, we have a once proud kingdom, which was kind of like the centre of the world. Like, it was full of magic. Like, wonders were done on a daily basis by people touched by the Shard. Yes. The Shard.
We'll go with that,
We'll call it the Shard, right. So I think the general idea was that you, at some point in your, like, maybe it kind of happened a bit randomly?
Yes, it seemed to mostly hit while you were asleep. You would wake up one morning and you would be changed.
And you would, I believe it's described at the time, have like gold hair and like pale
metallic skin.
Yeah.
And you would glow almost.
And you could just do miracles by waving your hand. Like, you're hungry, I'll just make food appear. You could just do incredible stuff. So, as such, this kingdom being... Is it Arelon?
Yes, Arelon.
Arelon,
Yeah, we'll
yeah.
go with that again.
Arelon being just the centre of magic in the world was a massive powerhouse.
Yeah.
It wanted for nothing. But then something happened. Something
yeah.
happened, and we don't really know what, in the context of this book, we don't know what happened. But then the magic broke.
Yes.
So the process in which people would randomly gain the power of a child kept happening.
Yes.
But instead of being transformed into like a magical demigod, you instead... This is something which stuck with me. It's something I found quite interesting. It's the idea that well, first of all, it becomes like a curse.
Yes. Yeah, it's a sickness.
Yeah. So you're described as having like blotchy skin.
Yeah. You get big black blotches in your skin. Yeah.
You just end up looking...
Or your hair falls out.
Yeah, you lose your hair, don't you? You just end up looking nasty and diseased. And now when this happens, you are... As soon as it happens, it's like a plague.
Yeah.
It's not really kind of contagious.
It's not. It hits people at random.
Which I guess it kind of makes it scary. They don't know why it's happening. So, but if you were infected, you contract the child now. You're bundled up, dressed in ceremonial white robes, and you are thrown inside the walled city of Elantris.
Which was the former capital.
Yes, which is what I'm forgetting. Yeah, Elantris was the city of glory.
Yeah.
In the country of Arelon.
Yes.
Yes, getting there. Nailed it. And, so now all the infected of the child are thrown inside this locked city, big walled city, guards stopping them getting out. And there they live in squalor.
Yes, because Elantris has started moulding. It is literally rotting.
The city is just falling
itself
apart.
Is crumbling and rotting.
The idea being that because it was made by magic?
Yeah, once the magic's gone, there's nothing left to sustain it.
Yeah. Because there was something about, I guess we'll touch on this later, like location.
Yes, yeah.
Like the magic is very much tied to the location.
Yeah, which is a very big thing for all the various magic that we see in this book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as the magic died, it led not only to the child becoming ruined, it led to the city physically crumbling, and of course the political power of that country has now suffered magically. Oh, Freudian slip. But another interesting and kind of nasty element of the child is that while you look kind of gross, your body becomes kind of, I want to say like frozen?
Yes.
At the state of the infection.
But not in the kind of good way that, say, Highlander does it. It's not like you're always going to be perfect. It means that you can never heal.
Your body never recovers from anything.
Anything at all. So I think in his first few minutes in Elantris, Rowden stubs his toe.
Oh, so should we touch upon who Rowden is?
Maybe we should. Yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Rowden is the Prince of Arleon. Is that what we were going with?
Yeah, why not? Arelon.
Arelon. Yeah. The Prince of Arelon. And he's the prince in the sense of his father was a wealthy merchant who took over the country when Elantris fell. So actually, his dynasty, as it were, is only 10 years old
at this point. It's a political structure now based entirely on wealth.
Yes, In order to be powerful, you have to be wealthy.
Yes.
There is a term for that, but I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Yes.
Yeah. But Rowden wakes up one day and he has been taken by the child and he is diseased.
Yeah.
And this is obviously a massive political problem for his father. He's his one heir. His dynasty is now dead because it's generally considered that the Elantrians are now the Walking Dead. That's kind of how people... They're zombies. They're people who are not yet dead and not properly alive.
Yes.
So Rowden gets thrown into
Elantris. Yes.
As is common.
And hence our story begins.
And there our story begins. And the outside world believes that Prince Rowden has simply died suddenly of a horrible disease.
Yeah, because it was kind of covered up.
Yeah, they claimed he had a disease that disfigured him so badly nobody could see the body.
Yes.
And at the same time as this, it turns out that Rowden was about to partake of a arranged marriage.
Yes.
To the princess from Teod.
Teod.
Yeah. Called Sarene. And the Teod royal family has a much longer line of actual royalty.
And of course Teod being a country in the north.
Yes.
Which didn't have magic.
No, but they do have a similar line to a similar sort of genetic line to the
Yeah.
other. So you could have Elantrians from Teod, because there does seem to be a genetic component to who gets taken.
Okay.
Only the people who have any kind of genetic connection to the land around Elantris ever get taken.
But this was... Teod was a country which was an ally
Yes.
of Arelon.
Yeah.
But kind of like... So the fall of Elantris and the loss of the magic has kind of affected everyone.
It has,
like the political structure has been kind of sort of cement the new world order.
They have arranged a marriage between Sarene, Princess of Teod,
Yes.
and Raudon, Prince of...
So they've never met.
No, they've never met. They've spoken over Seons, which are another random magical thing in this world, which are basically little balls of light that you can use to communicate over long distances.
So, and for what we know of these Seons, is that they were... I like to think of them as kind of like an artificial intelligence.
Yes, yeah.
Like a magical computer.
They're created by Elantrians.
And you said like a little ball of light. And the Elantrians created them, and with the fall of the magic, the kind of understanding of how we made them has gone.
The ones that are still out there seem to be fine.
Yes, but some have some go insane, don't they?
They only go insane if they're the person they are linked to, because they're usually linked to serve a certain person. You can pass them on and change the link. But if the person they are linked to is taken by the Shiod, or as it comes to be known, the Riod, which means punishment, apparently. But if someone is taken and thrown into Elantris, their Seon goes mad.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that generally consists of this kind of bowling ball-sized ball of light, just wandering around, bumping against walls.
Yes.
Because they can talk, can't they?
They can, yes.
And they're intelligent. They're like, it's like a lovely companion, like
and they feel that they're based on a lot of loyalty. Like, they don't consider themselves slaves.
Yeah.
They're kind of slightly horrified by the idea that they might be freed and make decisions for themselves.
Okay.
But they're definitely intelligent and free thinking. You can give them an instruction and they will interpret it.
So they seem to form like a bond.
Yes.
With a human. So Serene, this princess from a foreign land.
Yes.
This kind of not Scandinavia.
Yes.
It's basically like Scandinavia, isn't it? Yeah.
It's basically like Ilsa coming to take over another country.
Okay.
I guess, because she has the same kind of very fierce personality.
Okay, so this princess from a foreign land is being sent away, and her only companion is her Seon, which is this floating ball of light.
Yes.
Which
I believe her name is Asher.
Asher.
Yeah.
There we go. So she arrives in Arelon.
Yes.
Just to find that her arranged husband
has just died.
As far as we're aware.
Yeah.
Although really he's contracted the Shield, the Ray,
yeah.
and he's been bundled off to Elantris.
But because the marriage was so important, and because it was going to be such an important alliance between Aelion and Teod, which we'll come to in a moment, the terms of the marriage contract state that if either party dies before the marriage is formalised, it's the same as if the marriage was formalised. Okay. So she arrives on the shore, is told her husband to be is dead, and that she's now a princess of this country.
Okay.
And her father is waiting for her.
And because Arelon, its new political base is so fragile with the fall of magic that they're just like, well, we'll run with it.
Yeah, basically.
We're okay.
Yeah. And so Serene arrives, finds herself a widow, and sort of almost unintentionally sets about to dismantle the country. She doesn't mean to do that. It just seems that just about everything she does makes everything worse.
Does it though? I can't remember. Like, she tries to do a lot of good.
Well, she does try. I think the interesting thing about Serene's character is she could have very easily been a very stereotypical fantasy princess type. As it is, it's almost her character that she's not. She's meant to be 25 years old. She's considered an old maid in Teod. Even though she's the princess of the country, she can't find anyone to marry her.
Yeah.
Because she's too outspoken. Even just things like she's too tall. Mm-hmm. She's sort of fierce and self-important, and she knows what she wants and she goes and gets it.
Yeah.
And she decided she wanted Raudon. Like, that's the thing. She arranged her own arranged marriage.
Okay. I think it's something which Sanderson is quite good at.
Yeah.
Is subverting certain tropes, and he's
it's almost a trope. He has made a formula of subverting the formula.
Yeah. His characters are generally pretty good.
Yes.
They're generally pretty good. And
I quite like Serene.
Yeah, no, she's good. And,
like, yeah.
And like, she, with no real other purpose in her life, I guess political activism is what she does. She starts trying to improve So so you've got this kind of story developing where the prince of this land has contracted the Shard.
Yes.
Has been kind of cast away into Elantris, this ruined, rotting city.
Yes.
His bride-to-be has arrived, found him dead.
Yes.
And then has started kind of running the country.
Yes.
In the absence of anyone else.
There is a fantastic moment later in the book where she shouts the king Iadon into... she shouts King Iadon, Rauden's father, into submission.
Okay.
Because he does something very, very bad. And
I can't remember.
No?
No, I can't remember.
It comes later in the book, so I'm sure we'll get there.
Okay, well, I guess we don't have to...
No.
We don't have to cover everything, I suppose.
No.
But then, I guess the third element is, at the same time...
Yes.
This priest...
arrives from Fjordell.
Now, Fjordell is another northern country.
I think Fjordell is kind of everywhere at this point.
Okay.
I get Fjordell apparently was a great empire in the past at some point, and it has recently attempted to regain its former glory.
Yeah.
But instead of conquest in a strictest sense, it's converting various countries to their religion. And actually religion is very important.
Big thing in all of Sanderson's books.
And actually something that's interesting because it's often left out of fantasy novels. Like quite often, if people have a religion, it's some sort of little throwaway thing. Or, because there's magic, why would you need religion?
Or also you get to a world where a god is a physical thing.
Yes, yeah.
Elves, dwarves, gods.
Yeah.
Religion doesn't really hold the same place in a fantasy book because it's a matter of fact that your god lives over there.
Yes.
And will probably kill you if you go near him.
His lightning is made in that hill.
Yeah.
But yes, so there are sort of three major religions that we come across in Elantris.
Okay.
All based around the teachings of one man, which is the interesting bit. It's a very realistic kind of portrayal of religion, I find.
Okay.
There's the parent religion is called Shu Keseg, and that was based on the teachings of a man who said that the gods wanted humanity to be unified. They wanted unity.
Okay.
And there are a few followers of pure Shu Keseg left.
Okay.
And they believe that it's unity of mind that was demanded.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't see much of them. We only actually meet one follower in the entire book. It's made out that there's very few of them. But I'm guessing unity of mind would mean a lot of education-based stuff.
Okay.
Teachings, science. They don't seem too worried about the other religions in any way. It's
okay.
Like the religion of Fjordell is called Shu Derith.
Okay.
Which is based on the teachings of one of the disciples of Keseg.
Okay.
Who teaches that it's a unity of obedience.
Right.
So, in theory, if you convert to Shu Derith, you are swearing to obey their religious leader, who also happens to be their emperor. Which is how they're conquering.
Okay.
They're converting the nobility of various countries through sort of pressure and force. But by converting them, they are automatically absorbing them into their empire.
But this is a very interesting thing, because the kind of slightly weakened political situation in Aralon,
yes,
of which Elantris is the capital city. I'm trying to remember all his names. So basically, this priest called Hrathen arrives. He's called the Red Priest, isn't he?
He's the Gjorn.
The Gjorn.
Yes, which is apparently like there are 20 Gjorns. He's a very high level
like an
priest.
archbishop kind of
thing.
thing.
And he wears completely blood red armour.
Okay. But it's interesting because he's an interesting character because obviously he's a believer.
Yes.
But he's the carrot to the stick.
Yes.
Because the empire of Fjordell is expanding. They're very aggressive. They want to conquer a lot of countries. They see an opportunity to exploit Aralon, to take over.
Yeah.
So there's two ways of doing it. You can either take over by force, or you can take over by them converting to the religion.
Yeah.
So Hrathen, he's the villain, I guess, in that he's coming over and through political games and kind of
it's a lot of politicking.
Politicking. He's trying to get the country to convert to his religion.
Or more specifically, he's trying to get the nobility of the country to convert.
Because then you get the trickle-down effect.
Yeah.
Now, but which is interesting because obviously what he's doing is very, well, you could say it's wrong.
Yeah.
I think it's wrong what he's doing.
He believes he's helping.
But this is a weird thing. Like, obviously his goal is conquest.
Yeah.
but he genuinely believes... Or A, he's a believer.
Yeah.
So he believes that converting people to his faith is saving them.
Yes.
B, he knows that it's literally saving them, because if he doesn't convert them...
The armies are going to
They're going to send the armies who will come and kill everyone.
Yeah.
Which, again, is quite an interesting thing, because he...
And it's interesting because it's kind of almost a minor plot line in Harathan's story in this, but he's already failed at that.
He's failed once.
He's failed once. The Republic of Douladen, which we meet a few people from Douladen because they were refugees.
Okay.
And they're taking refuge in Arlion. He tried to convert Douladen.
Yeah.
And he failed, and the armies came in, and there was a massacre.
So
or rather, it triggered a civil war almost, and the people of Douladen overthrew their own republican government and massacred hundreds of people.
Because he's quite a complex character. He believes very strongly in his cause, and he's I guess he's a zealot, really. He
is, but he's a very logical zealot.
But also,
he doesn't have the passion. But he knows what he's doing is right, and he'll follow it.
But he has this conflict, though, because while he believes utterly in the teachings of his church, he seems also very conflicted about the fact that they do horrible things.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of a believer despite that.
Yeah.
And it sits uneasily
his faith demands
with him.
Obedience. That's the thing. It's like his faith. He serves his faith best by obeying the higher ups.
Yeah.
And the higher ups from him is basically the emperor.
Okay.
Because he's in that top tier.
Yes.
So he gets to directly serve the emperor, and they believe that only the emperor can serve their god.
Yes.
It's very much like it's a very strict pyramidal structure here. But the religion that's native to Teod and Arlion is called Shu Korath.
Okay.
And that is founded by another disciple of the original man who believed that it was unity of love.
Okay.
So the Korathi religion is very much more about, it's very sort of friendly and soft, and wants you to come into the fold and be part of a group, and you serve best by serving your family, serving your friends, keeping a much more kind of friendly, happy environment going. But the thing is that the only place in the world that Shu Korath is still practiced is Teod and Arlion.
Okay.
And
these two countries, which of course now trying to unite with a political marriage.
And that's the driving force behind Serene's whole thing, because she is a true believer. She is another true believer.
I can't remember that at all, actually.
But in Shu Korath.
The other one.
Yeah.
Okay. So religion is always quite a big thing Sanderson's books.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess, so in that rather complex setup, you have these three plot threads, really.
Yes,
we see it from three perspectives. You've got Riordan, who's been condemned to Elantris because he has the shard.
Yes.
Words.
Words.
You have Serene, who's just arrived, inherited a dead throne, really, and is now trying to help the country. And then you have Harathan, the priest, who has arrived and is trying through political means to take over the country as well. But he's still doing it for the wrong reasons, but kind of...
He thinks he's doing it for the right reasons.
He is
but he does have quite an impressive crisis of faith later on in the book.
He's the lesser of two evils.
Yes. Yeah.
Lesser of two evils, basically.
And I mean, we have plenty of subsidiary characters to talk about, but those are the three main ones. Raoden, Sareen, and Harathan. Harathan also has Dilaf, who is his kind of ridiculously zealous head priest of the church in Arlion, or eventually he gets there. Dilaf is a true, passionate zealot. I mean, and it's very interesting, the contrast between Harathan's kind of cold logic for what he does, and Dilaf's just fierce, fiery hatred of everything that isn't Shu Dereth. And that includes, weirdly, a particular hatred for the Elantrians. Because the Elantrians aren't of Shu Korath. They just kind of existed and were quite happy for religions to exist
which is funny, because I think
I'd
forgotten the fact that Serene had a religion. I've just completely forgotten that at all. And my kind of takeaway from it, because it's been a while since I read it, but I just remembered that the Elantrians seemed entirely without a religion. Presumably
individual Elantrians may have kept the religion that they had before they became Elantrians. But as a whole, they didn't really consider it, I think.
Yeah.
Although we do find out later that they did have a religion, it might actually be closer to the truest sense of how their world works.
Okay.
Because they had a very direct connection to the gods, obviously.
To this godlike power. Okay, so with Rowden,
yes,
he's contracted the shard,
yes,
and he's cast into this ruined city.
He is.
And
slime growing out the walls.
Yeah.
It's filthy.
But the interesting thing with the shard
yes.
now, what was once a blessing is now a curse. Now, you mentioned earlier, you learn that the body becomes frozen.
Yes.
Which doesn't mean you don't age. It just means you never recover from anything.
Yeah.
So every minor injury you pick up
just builds and builds.
Never heals.
Never. The pain never stops.
And the pain never goes away.
So, like I say, in the first few minutes when he's in Elantris, he ends up being chased by a bunch of thugs who are after his food because you feel unbearable hunger.
Oh, but this is the thing: you don't die.
No, you don't die of hunger. You just feel the hunger forever.
It's like you can't die. You just kind of keep persisting, getting hungrier and hungrier.
But it's a funeral tradition of Shu Korath to bury your dead with food to take with them. So when you're thrown into Elantris, you're given a basket of food, and it's kind of a big thing for Elantrians to watch people getting thrown in. And there's kind of this uneasy truce between like 3 different gangs within Elantris.
Well, it's a lawless, walled, horrible city.
And basically Rowden falls afoul of one of these 3 gangs who go after his little basket of food.
Yes.
And in that process, he stubs his toe, and that is still bothering him.
The pain never
goes away. Imagine the pain of when you've really stubbed your toe.
It's a bit like
that first moment.
It's a bit like leprosy.
Yeah.
Kind of like in the way it's presented, and like you keep accumulating these little injuries. I guess for catches in leprosy, a lot of the time the feeling goes as well. Yeah. But in this instance, no.
No.
Which is a horrible thought.
It really was.
It's really gross, yeah.
And a lot of the Elantrians eventually lose their minds.
Yes.
It's called getting lost. Going hoed. That's another word.
Hoed.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I have recently been playing a lot of Dark Souls. And it's interesting now looking back, there are a lot of similarities between the two. Like in Dark Souls, when you get the dark sign, you get this little kind of black spot on your body, you become undead. Kind of undying, but your body becomes horrible and disfigured, and you lose a lot of what makes you, and you're cast into this, like a walled city, an asylum, to kind of rot. But then the catch is, much like in the 2, in Dark Souls, when you completely lose what purpose you have left, you become hollow, you just become like a mindless monster. Yeah. Which is similar to... Yes,
and it is similar, but it's shown eventually that you can overcome it in a strange way. Like, if you've gone completely lost, it's very hard because you don't have any sense of the world around you anymore.
Yeah.
You go catatonic.
Yeah, because
you can't see
the pain, the horror, the numbness of it. You just lose your mind.
But most of Rowden's plot, our character arc in this, is him figuring out what's caused it, but at the same time figuring out how to sort of slightly fix it.
Yeah.
Like, he works out fairly quickly that if you've got something to do, if you have a purpose, if you have something to focus on, it can kind of distract you from the pain.
Yeah.
So you can even stand the hunger. And, it can stop you losing your mind. And he spends a lot of time and a lot of energy trying to ensure that he can secure a little section of Elantris where he can keep people safe.
Yeah.
And make sure that they have something to do. And he even finds, like, a cleaner. And he goes, well, clean then. And he has a man just scrubbing all of the paving stones, and eventually people join them, and more paving stones. So he manages to clean a little section.
They start growing. Do we know it start growing crops?
They do, because it's some of the people coming in with food bring in corn. So they plant the corn. They have a farmer with them, and they plant the corn.
So Ryodan kind of proves himself to be a person of quite exceptional motivation and purpose. And
the people in the city don't know that he's the prince.
No, he keeps that hidden.
Yeah. A couple of people work it out.
Yeah.
Because he keeps calling himself Spirit, which is the literal translation of his name.
Yes.
But
then he kind of completely turns around this hopeless environment and starts building like a little civilization there, I guess, for lack of a better word. Like, he brings a bit of meaning back to these people's lives.
which is almost immediately destroyed by Serene, completely accidentally.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because Serene in the outside world is trying to politic her way up the ranks of Arleon's nobility. It turns out that her uncle from Teod, so the brother of the king of Teod, is living in Arleon quite happily, and that kind of gives her an in into certain parts of the court that maybe wouldn't be so open to her, even though she's the princess, just to walk into. So she starts manipulating the court of Arleon. And it turns out that there's a tradition in Arleon that a new widow does some sort of public service or trial to show how much they miss their husband. And she decides to feed the Elantrians.
Okay.
So she walks into Elantris with big carts full of food into a city full of starving, insane people.
Yes.
By this point, Rowden has managed to assert enough control that actually two of the other gangs are sort of inert. One of them has just been completely absorbed, and the other has just kind of disintegrated. So he manages to control the area around the gates and keeps her safe. This is the first time they meet, and obviously she doesn't know who he is.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fun banter as it's like she sort of likes him, but despite herself, she knows she shouldn't like him, and she works out pretty quickly that he's the actual power behind.
But of
this
course,
place.
he has made these people who had no hope, who had nothing, he's made them kind of self-sufficient and self-reliant, but then,
the
of
moment
course,
someone comes in with handouts,
a great big bowl of charity arrives, and then they're like, oh, well, we don't need to
Yeah.
be self-sufficient anymore, we need to just feed off this.
So her trial lasts a couple of weeks, and in that couple of weeks she manages to more or less dismantle everything
He's done.
Rowden's done.
Yeah.
And again, this is the fun thing I like about Serene. She does all these things that seem very sensible and very logical, but she's just not helping.
That was a fairly honest misunderstanding.
It was, everything she does is a completely honest misunderstanding.
Yeah, well, she tries.
And I like that because I see a lot of me in her.
Yeah.
You try to help, but somehow it just goes wrong.
Okay, well, how about the fact that also, while Ryodan has been in Elantris, he has been researching the lost magic.
Yes, it turns out the magic of Elantris was done by drawing symbols in the air.
Yes.
And you have to be very accurate, but you can use any finger and just draw certain shapes. And it's the ancient language of Arleon. They're called aeons.
Aeons, yes.
And the magic was called Aeon Door.
So an aeon is like a syllable.
Yes.
If you,
It's not an alphabetic language. It was a symbolic language.
Yeah.
Each different aeon represented a completely different word.
No. But it's like you look at his name, like Ryodan.
Yeah.
It's like two syllables, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is like
But
two...
everybody in Arleon has at least one syllable that comes from an aeon.
Yes.
And his aeon is spirit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's what becomes referred to later in many sources as form-based magic.
Yes. All the magics that we see are based on shapes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, as you were saying, to do the Elantrian magic, back when it worked, because it doesn't work anymore, you would simply trace your finger in the air, a glowing kind of glyph would appear, and then you could do awesome things.
Yes.
So didn't Ryodan, doesn't he start trying that? And he finds that he can get close, but it doesn't work.
It can glow, but then it just sort of vanishes. It doesn't do anything.
He can trace like the symbol, but then it doesn't do anything. Because, of course, the child is broken.
Yes.
Like, he's clearly meant to be a magic user, but it's not working.
Something is... And he says it's like there's a shape behind the glyph that's trying to get through, and if he can make the glyph the right shape, it will fit. But there's something wrong with the shape behind the glyph, and it doesn't fit.
He comes into the theory that, exactly that, like, the symbols are wrong.
Yeah.
Which is why all the magic
Despite the fact that they've been used for millennia.
Which is why all the magic is broken.
Yeah. And he comes to the remarkable conclusion that the earthquake that signalled the collapse 10 years ago...
I guess we have to backpedal a bit here and say there was a big earthquake.
Yeah, well, and everyone assumed that was caused by the Elantrian magic failing.
Yes.
And he comes to the realisation instead that it was the other way around.
Okay.
That the earthquake caused the magic to fail.
Okay.
So something changed.
Yes.
And it can't make it, something in that earthquake made it all wrong.
Yes.
And yeah.
So this is kind of like by this point now we've kind of described maybe the first 2/3 of the book.
Yeah.
This is kind of like the beginning and the middle.
Yeah.
I guess it goes without saying we should probably talk about just mention spoilers.
I guess spoilers, yes. I mean, this is a 10-year-old book.
It is a 10-year-old book,
But because of that big picture that we mentioned earlier, there are spoilers in this book for books that are far more recent.
Yeah.
And books that are yet to be published, I guess, in a way.
Okay.
So if you're not aware of the term Cosmere,
yeah,
then I suggest you go look up a character called Hoyd, and then come back to this later.
Yeah, basically, Sanderson writes a lot, and he writes about different worlds, but there's a lot to reward someone who reads everything.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I guess we enter like the final act of the book.
Yes.
What are the stakes? What's happening?
Well, by the end of the book, the Hrathen has persuaded a large chunk of the populace to kind of convert to Shodereth. He's not having much luck with the nobility, but he has managed to get one significant noble, like the second richest man in Arleon, to give him kind of tacit approval that he will convert should he make sure he can get on the throne.
Okay, so yeah, he's like, yeah, I'll join your religion if you can promise that I'll rule this place.
Exactly, yeah. And so Hrathen thinks that he's won. And it turns out that actually Dilaf, his second in command, has been playing a completely different game in the background and has more or less scuppered everything that Hrathen has.
Because Hrathen, for all his faults, still believes that what he's doing is the best option.
Yes.
Because otherwise, the government, like his home country, will come and invade.
So his job is, he feels if he can get this one noble, who's called Telri, I believe, on the throne, everything will be fine. That's more or less kind of scuppered by Serene agreeing to marry another noble, which together would make that noble much richer.
Okay.
And he'd be on the throne. So he poisons Serene. And the poison causes her to get black blotches all over her skin and all her hair to fall out. So she's thrown into Elantris. And that gives him like a few days while the poison works its magic to try and fix everything outside and get Telri on the throne.
Yeah.
And Serene comes to a miraculous recovery a few days later.
Yeah, because this is ultimately, like, nothing comes of this, really. Like, I don't think this is a complaint as such, but it almost doesn't feel like a major subplot, because...
No, I mean, I think it's more an excuse to get Serene into Elantris.
Yeah, it's an excuse that Serene and Ryodan get to spend a bit of time together.
Yeah.
And also, as you say, so that Hrathen can try and manipulate the throne or whatever.
Yeah, Hrathen had sort of... I'm now trying to remember which order this happens in slightly.
Well, I just go generally. It doesn't have to be...
Hrathen also poisons himself. And he gets thrown into Elantris, even though everyone knows he shouldn't be able to be taken by the child.
Yeah.
Because he's not... He has no genetic connection to the land around Elantris. But he makes out that he kind of prays the punishment away.
Yeah, because he's developed a poison which can temporarily simulate the effects of the child. So when it goes away, you're like, oh, it's a miracle, he's cured.
Yeah.
It must be the power of my religion.
Yes,
which did
basically.
It. Yeah.
So he's very, very close to success here.
Okay.
But it is then kind of scuppered by Dilaf.
Okay.
It turns out...
The fanatical
local second
priest.
in command. Turns out is not a local priest. Turns out he is from the mysterious sort of monastery of fighting monks that the Shodereth people have. And they have certain magics that allow you to change your shape. So they have another form of the shape magic, which involves carving shapes directly onto your bones.
Yes. Again, it's all about symbols.
It's all about symbols, and they're different symbols from what I understand.
Yeah, a different language.
You don't really get them described all that much, the same way you get the Aeons described. But basically, yes, Dilaf starts the invasion.
Yeah, essentially, because all of this is a lot of political dancing around the fact that the finale of the book is that the country, Fjorndel invades.
Yes.
With their army of rather scary fighting monks.
Yes.
Whose bodies have been horrifically kind of modified.
Yeah, cut and carved and
because as you said, you carve symbols directly onto your bone.
Yeah. And it turns out that Hrathen actually spent some time in that monastery and couldn't cut the
He found
mustard,
it too
as it were.
horrific, yeah.
So he managed to find his way to the higher echelons, but he's not...
So what can they do? I can't remember. The fighting monks with their magic bones.
They're very strong. It's kind of standard stuff. They're very strong, very fast, very durable.
Yeah.
But also they have abilities like they can stand in a circle around one of their number and use that person's sort of life force to power like a teleportation spell. So they're not invading by sea or by mountain, they are just teleporting into the middle of cities.
Because things very quickly go to hell, don't they?
Yeah.
It's like suddenly it's blood and guts and fire, and these monks are horrible.
The king is deposed.
Yeah.
But he's kind of deposed before everything goes wrong. It's just like they take their moment, basically.
Because you kind of realise that as bad as Hrathen was, he really was the better option.
He really was, yeah.
Because then these monks just turn up and start slaughtering people. And like people...
And the idea is they are planning to kill everybody with any blood that would connect them to Elantris.
Yes.
So that there can be no more Elantrians.
And also, like, it's all the sub-characters, all the supporting characters you've seen, the greater castes, they're all being rounded up, people are getting murdered. It's, it's horrific.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they all get thrown into Elantris. They take them through the gates into Elantris to start scouring Elantris. And at this point, Sareen and Rowden have finally kind of come to terms and they realise they actually quite like each other. And it looks like they're going to be able to build some kind of life together.
Yeah, they realise...
Rowden's come out of the closet and said, I'm the prince of this country, my father's been deposed, I'm now king.
Yeah, but are we getting things the wrong order now? Because obviously Sareen's thing gets cured. Because she didn't actually have the child.
Yeah. I think that happens a little bit. It's quite a busy act, actually.
Yeah, but all that really matters is that like everything's going to hell, but Ryodan works something out.
He does. He figures out that the earthquake caused a chasm to open in the mountains to the south of Aeolian.
Yeah, it was a great big
and
crevasse.
It turns out that the Aeons are based on the shape of the country.
Yeah.
Like, the shape that you draw to start every Aeon is the shape of Aeolian.
Which is why... Because everything is symbol-based.
Yeah.
So it's like the idea is if you could look at the country... No, Elantris itself.
Yeah.
If you could look at Elantris... Is it Elantris?
It is, well, yes, but the basis of it is that the magic is all based on the shape of Aeolian.
The country.
The country.
So
it's a line at the top for the coastline, a curved line for the mountains, and then a dot for a big lake that's in the middle.
Yeah.
And the chasm opened up crossing the mountains.
So if you could view the country from the sky, you'd see that basic shape.
Yes.
As you said, like line here, line here, line here, and a dot.
Yeah.
Zoom in to the city of Elantris.
Yes. And Elantris is set up like a giant spirit Aeon.
Because all the magic is based around drawing a symbol.
Yes.
So the city itself is a symbol when seen from above.
Yeah.
But because for the magic to work, you have to draw the symbol of the country, the shape of the country, and then modify it to do magic. Because the country has changed shape because of the earthquake, therefore the shape of Elantris is now wrong.
Yeah.
Which is why the magic doesn't work. Which is why everything, the entire language is broken.
So basically, in the middle of this massive battle, there's monks running through, scouring Elantris. There are people of Aeolian trying their best to protect what they can, trying to fight back.
Oh, and they're burning people with the shield.
Oh yeah, they're just putting them into bonfires and burning
But
them.
because they can't die.
Yeah.
This is horrible.
Yeah.
Like, they're burning these undead people alive who can't die.
And then Rowden, who's nearly gone Hoed by this point.
His body's falling apart, essentially.
He's nearly mad. He runs through this mess with a couple of his friends who are just like, don't know what he's doing, but just let him do it, whatever it is. Don't let them stop him. He grabs a stick and he runs through the city, dragging the stick behind him.
This is as simple as it comes down to. It's like he has to draw
one line.
A line on the city.
Yeah. And
to
he
complete
drags
the symbol.
stick behind him while all this battle is going on. And then as he connects to the wall with this line, everything explodes into light. And the Shield finishes the process, so they're no longer this kind of frozen undead people. All these golden, silver deities start walking out of bonfires, and just it scatters everything.
Yeah. So with modifying the symbol of the city by that one line, everyone who was a manky undead person is now a god. And
that's a classic Sanderson thing. Like, the bit of information you needed was something really simple.
You were staring at it all along. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just I like how subtle it was. Like, even right up until that point, I was like, yes, I finally got it. I understand what he's doing. And it was very cool.
Yeah.
It was very cool. Yeah.
And in summary, I mean, all these godlike people just blow the heck out of all these priests using
because
their laser powers.
He's had a few of them since he figured out how to make the Aeons work by adding this one line. He's had a few of them practicing certain things because he felt that, knowing what Serene had told him what was going on outside, he knew something was coming. So the first thing they start doing is throwing fireballs around because he had them all practicing how to make fireballs.
So you're an angry monk, are you? I'm just going to draw a little symbol on here, and then boom, just blows people up. Yeah. And
then kind of the grand finale, I guess, is that Serene has actually been sort of shipped back across to Teod because her father has converted in big kind of inverted commas, that something has been happening across the sea. She's not been able to do anything. While she's been working in Arleon, her own country has been falling apart as well. And so Rowden chases her using a teleportation Aeon that he finds.
Yeah, that's basically it, isn't it? They show... He
goes and he gets to be the wonderful prince and rescue the princess.
That's it, the Elantrians teleport en masse to that foreign country, blow up all the monks...
And then have to get a boat back.
Yeah, then they can't...
Because the magic doesn't work that far away.
Yeah, it's location based. And But that's it.
Yeah.
Happy ending.
It is a good ending,
but with the greater threat of the Empire still kind of out
Fjordell
there somewhere.
is still out there. But now the power of Elantris should be able to protect at least Arleon.
Yeah, well...
of course, Rowden gets crowned king.
Of course.
Serene is now queen of Arleon.
They all get medals at the end and pose for the camera and
it's all happily ever after, really.
Yeah, the end.
So I mean that's a pretty. I like the ending. I mean, it is of Sanderson's novels. I think it's the most generic, in a way.
Well, it's
still. I mean, I say generic. It sounds like a bad thing. I love this book.
It's interesting that it's probably his most. What it's like, as we've kind of described, is a 3-act structure. Mm-hmm. It's not massively tricky.
No.
There's no kind of... It's not trying to pull the rug out from under you. It's just kind of like, this is the story.
It's an easy read.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very much... It's a read you can just sit down and kind of chomp your way through it. But also, it doesn't hold you back in any way.
There's always an internal logic to his books as well. And it's as you said, as you see Riordan trying to solve the mystery of why the magic is broken... You do get the feeling that there's a legitimate reason for it. It's not just like some nonsense.
That's always the feeling you get with Sanderson magic systems, is that there are rules, and even if you don't know them all, he knows them all, and he's obeying them. Nothing that happens, no matter how ridiculous it seems, disregards the rules.
Yeah.
And that's a weird thing, because it's, Sanderson magic systems are kind of infamous, in a way, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
In that they're all kind of the same magic system, just fed through different filters.
Because he writes about a lot of different worlds, a lot of different stories, and they're all kind of standalone.
Yeah.
But then as you read more and you learn a bit more about what's going on...
We've given a spoiler warning, so go for it.
Yeah, well, it's like you learn that it's all in the same solar system?
I think it's the same sort of galaxy.
So, I mean, it depends how much you want to go into this.
At some point in the past, this is the greater plot of the Cosmere.
Yes.
At some point in the past, someone kind of identified God.
Found God.
Yeah, which I believe was called Andalosium. And splintered it.
Yes, so God was blown up into 16 pieces.
16 parts,
Yeah, and each of these parts is like an element of God.
Yeah.
So you have, for example... they're called shards.
They're called shards, yeah.
So the 16 shards of God.
Yeah.
And you have things like God's...
Devotion.
God's dominion.
Yeah.
What's the other two from Mistborn?
Ruin
and preservation.
There's also odium.
Odium, his hate.
Yeah.
So you have all these elements of God which were blown outwards.
And each of them landed
on different planets.
And each planet that they landed on had a certain, they call it a spirit web, which is not a term that's used anywhere in the books, but it's a general kind of greater term that is used on fan sites and things. And each spirit web determined how that shard's power would be described in that world. So on Elantris, we appear to have devotion and domination.
Yeah, which is worth pointing out. This is something that never comes up in Elantris.
No, it's never named.
You'd never have any idea. But it's only when you read the other books and start kind of realising what's going on.
But it turns out that the magic of the Elantrians is based on devotion.
Yeah, so it's worth saying that every shard of God, every shard can give rise to a magic system.
Yes.
So these shards kind of randomly blasted out across the universe, and sometimes one landed on a planet, and that's all you got. Sometimes a couple crash landed on a planet, and then they gave rise to a form of magic.
Yes.
So certain elements of the planet might define what shape that magic takes.
So on, I believe they call this planet Cell.
Cell.
Yeah.
Again, not anything that comes up in the book.
No. All the magic is form-based.
Yes.
So devotion's magic is fed through Elantris, and you have to make the shape of the country, so something you're devoted to.
Yeah.
And it also takes a lot of skill to make those shapes. You have to be devoted to making the shapes.
Which is something that does come up in the book, that apparently like the only unifying factor that seemed to affect people who got affected by the shard is that they were especially devoted to something.
Yes.
Master craftsmen,
artists,
musicians, that
princes
kind of thing.
of the country. Who was because Ralden was trying to usurp his own father.
Yeah.
Kind of quietly in the background, he was trying to make his country better for his people.
Yeah.
And it is the people who are there are devoted, obsessed people.
Yeah. But it's interesting because then you have the magic of the priests, the evil priests.
Yes, which we think might be domination.
Dominion.
Dominion, sorry.
Dominion.
Yeah.
So like it's based on shapes.
Yeah.
You have to carve shapes into your bone.
But you have to like overpower your body to do it.
Yeah, it's not based on like creativity or I guess devotion, as we said, like a belief in something. It's kind of like I'm going to force things to be my way.
Although we don't know that for certain, because they do talk about the religions of Shu-Korath and Shu-Dereth. Even the people there think that it's the same god, they just have different names for it.
Yes, which is an interesting thing as well, because the shards can occasionally be mistaken for gods.
Yes, yeah.
It's like a world may have an immensely powerful being there, which might contain the power of the shard.
Some of the shards are controlled by minds. There are sort of human minds that have the power of the shard.
And become, for all intents and purposes, a god.
Yeah.
But your power is defined, sometimes vaguely, by what that shard is.
Yes.
So if you possess the power of God's devotion, it's like you can do a lot. Like, it depends, how do you define devotion? What are the limits of devotion? But you see in other worlds, there's, for example, a character who's bonded to ruin.
Yes.
He has the power of God's ruin, so all he can do is destroy.
Yeah.
That's pretty vague.
And it sends him quite bonkers.
And that's open-ended.
Yeah.
Like, you can do a lot with the power to destroy. But
it's, and then, on that same world, there is someone with the power of preservation. And they can't create anything. They had to couple with ruin's power in order to have enough power to create. But they can maintain.
And this is something I really, really enjoyed. Like, the concepts. And to be fair, like, a lot of this is speculation.
Oh, a lot of it.
A lot of it's been confirmed by like the word of God, but there is a very devoted wiki called the 17th Shard, which is a fan community of people piecing together all these story elements and what Sanderson has said in interviews and how.
And I believe now the 17th Shard, I don't know if it was always intended to be, but the 17th Shard is now a thing
in the books.
Yeah. Because as well as what the events of this book, we have seen certain characters in this book subtly in other books.
Yeah, there are characters who overlap between all the books. And I guess if we're going to be talking about the Sanderson books, which is going to be kind of like...
I'm sure we're going to do it quite a bit.
Like the opening. Yeah. Yeah, like that's something we will be returning to. Is it worth talking about another story which set in this world?
Yes, it probably is. There is a short
Soul.
story called The Emperor's Soul, which is it is set in Cell.
In a different country,
in a completely
but on
different
this
country.
planet.
The only connection that there is within that story is they mention a country called Svorden, which is mentioned in Elantris. And you never see it, and you never go there, but clearly, wherever Svorden is, it's kind of equidistant between Elantris and the world of the Emperor's Soul.
Well, here's the thing, because you have Elantris, but then you have these countries to the north, Teod and Fjorda.
Yeah.
Got the impression they're kind of Scandinavian-esque.
Yeah.
Esque. They're like mountainous, cold. They have
lots of navies.
Yeah, good with boats.
Yeah. Teod is very good with boats, apparently.
But then there is this one character who's like a guest from a foreign country.
Yes.
Who based on his description and the way he dresses, you can almost picture him as being Chinese.
Yes, yeah.
Asian. Like, you kind of picture him... I could picture him almost being like a kind of... You think of, like, the Forbidden Palace in, like, Chinese history and stuff like that, and the way he dresses.
Yes.
And at one point in the book, it's a little throwaway thing, but at one point in the book, when the evil priests are, like, burning everyone alive, you see him doing kind of like Tai Chi.
Yes. He's described as sort of spinning his fists in very tight circles, getting faster and faster, and moving in a strange kind of circular way.
So while it's never touched upon before, this fellow does epic Tai Chi.
And starts glowing.
Yes, and appears to start glowing with energy. So again, another magic form, which is never mentioned.
It's never just really... He never really manages to do much with it. I think he takes down a few monks.
Yeah.
And then they kind of overpower him.
But again, running with the idea of shapes, he is doing a form of magic by making shapes with his body, which we would consider to be like martial arts.
Yes.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting.
And interestingly, in Emperor's Soul, it is based around the idea of forging. Is the magic there.
And set in the country of Svorden?
No, not set in Svorden. They mention Svorden. I believe it's called the Rose Empire,
which is
set.
Such obvious parallels to, like, China. And it's actually worth knowing, I think Sanderson says in his kind of author notes that he was inspired after seeing some ancient Chinese stamps, because like seals.
Yes, because that's how forging works.
Sorry, over to you.
Yeah, well, forging works by you take any sort of structure, any kind of cylindrical shape with a flat end, and you carve a stamp into the top of that shape. And the shape determines what that stamp does. And the stamp will change the history of anything you stamp with it.
Yes.
Like, so you have to have a special kind of ink, and then you stamp it into an object, and it sinks very slightly into that object. Regardless of what it's made of, it could be made of the hardest ceramic in the world, and it would still sink in.
Okay.
And then you turn it to stamp it. And then it will change the history of that object to something else.
Okay, so let's just kind of like, because this is perhaps a little hard to get your head around.
Yeah.
It gets explained very well in the books, but... So let's think about like a modern day kind of comparison. So like a rubber stamp.
A rubber stamp, but I think it was based on... you would have seals in sort of Chinese imperial history.
Which are described as being...
Usually be on jade or on some kind of precious stone.
So if you can picture like a beautiful kind of... It's described as being like kind of... like a cuboid.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you can use anything. Like, I think at some point, Shai, who's the forger in Emperor's Soul, does it just on the end of a table leg. She carves a little shape into the wood, and that works. But the best thing to do it on is this special kind of stone called soul stone. Yeah,
some magic MacGuffin, basically.
Which is how it's described. I imagine it quite like soapstone.
Yes.
Like, it's kind of soft, easy to carve. It doesn't chip or break. But if you heat it, it becomes absolutely unbreakable, and you can put ridiculously fine detail into the carvings.
But her gimmick is she is both a forger and a forger with a capital F. And if you read a lot of Sanderson, you're going to get a lot of proper nouns.
There's a lot of capital letters,
So the gimmick being is that you make a magic stamp.
Yeah.
So you have this beautiful kind of stone stamp with, as you said, a symbol on the bottom, which you spend weeks carving.
Yeah.
But the idea is that, and her gimmick is, say you get a cheap, nasty table.
Yes.
It's basically just a plank with 4 rods stuck into the bottom. So she then, using her skills in magic, writes a unique symbol.
Yeah.
Which, when stamped into the wood, and the surface of Ohad
will kind of absorb it slightly.
Becomes
sink in.
Yeah. So then, by stamping an object, you can rewrite its history.
Yeah.
So she would rewrite the history of that table, when instead of being made by, say, me, an idiot who can't work a sander, it instead was made by a master craftsman out of the finest wood.
Yeah.
So then this, rubbish little table
would just ripple and turn into.
Yeah.
But it has to be kind of believable.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't make that table into a lamp.
No, it was always a table.
It was always a table. And it's interesting because the point of the Emperor's Soul is that the Emperor of the Rose Empire has been injured.
It was an assassination attempt.
And they've managed to heal him, but they haven't been able to give him his memories back.
Yes.
So she has to forge his memories.
Well, he's essentially brain dead.
He is, yeah.
There's
So,
no
he's
physical harm
kind
to
of,
his body.
Yeah, it's like because this country will use forging with a capital F for certain things, but considers it a kind of abomination to use it for other things.
Yes.
And Shy is very much, I use forging for everything.
Well, you have basically you have this incredibly monarchistic. Everything hinges on the emperor.
Yeah.
He lives in this amazing palace, like the Forbidden City in.
And it's like the trick is that his wife was killed in the assassination attempt. They managed to save his life using their version of the stamp magic, the forging. Yeah. Which it's like this dubious thing where they'll quite happily, they're not allowed to use it on people's souls. Yeah. But they are allowed to use it on their bodies. It's a fine line.
But in a nutshell, it's like in say 100 days.
Because he's in the mourning period, so he's allowed to be unseen for 100 days while he's mourning his wife.
So his advisors have a 100-day period of plausible deniability. Yes. Where they can hide the emperor away. Yeah. He's brain dead. He's in a bed. Yeah. If they don't then present him to his loving country, it will all plunge into war and ruin. Yeah. So they have this. She's like the greatest thief and forger you could imagine. Yeah. She breaks in, steals something, leaves a replacement behind. Yeah. Because she can forge it.
Just because she can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have her. They capture her and they say, "You have 100 days to forge capital F the emperor's soul."
Yes.
So can you make an imitation soul in 100 days?
Yes.
And if you don't, we'll kill you.
Yeah.
But the whole country will go to war anyway, so it'll all be horrible.
Yeah. And so, yes, she basically, given no other choice, really says, yeah, I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
And the story is just the 100 days. It's her diary.
Yeah, locked in a prison cell.
What she does every day. And she gradually turns her prison cell into the most luxurious kind of guest apartment that she can manage.
Yeah, like every day to make herself a bit more comfortable, she makes herself a luxurious bed, a nice table.
Makes the fireplace a bit bigger, makes the chimney stop smoking.
Yeah.
And then she gradually builds up from diaries and memories the emperor's soul, as it were. And it's quite clearly a devotion magic.
Yes. Because, it's a passion.
Yeah, she's had to put everything of her life into this. In fact, she has a set of stamps which are her own soul stamps. So similar to what she's creating for the Emperor, where she can change her own history at certain points. Yeah. To create a different her for a different circumstance. So she has like a warrior her, where instead of devoting her life to forging, she devoted her life to martial arts and strength.
So because she has cause later on to use it. Yeah. So she kind of scamps it into her arm, leaves a little symbol on her arm, and then she becomes this alternate version of herself where she's a warrior. Yeah. But the gimmick of the Emperor is she is able to make an imitation soul. Yes. And to do that, she has to study his entire life. Yeah. Which is what she's been doing for 100 days. So the gimmick is, it's not perfect, but every day the Emperor's advisors will scamp him on the back of the neck, which will...
Because it's so complicated, it won't kind of stick.
It only lasts for like a day. Yeah.
And but it will make him... It will make him good enough.
Yeah, he's not quite
exactly himself. His mind is gone, basically. That's what it comes down to. The Emperor as was is dead. He's gone.
But it's an interesting idea. It's like, and then look, it's to keep peace. It's like you scamp him daily, and you'll get
a good approximation.
A very good imitation emperor, who can think the same way. Yeah.
But it is interesting that clearly there is a lot more to this planet. There is a lot more to sell, and so we don't know whether we've actually seen domination magic.
Yeah. Well, this is a weird thing. Like, I mean, it could go either way, and I wonder if. I don't think Sanderson does a lot of things randomly. I think there's generally a reason for everything. So you could say to yourself, devotion and dominion have both ended up on the same planet. Yes. We have a world which is split between the two. And it's interesting that both the magics could be described as going either way.
Yeah. Like it could be, because we have another example in hemalurgy, which comes from the Mistborn world.
Well, it's like, how much do we want to get into that?
But that is a mixture of two shards.
Okay, so it's possible to have a form of magic which
so it could be that all the magic on Cell...
Feruchemy.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, Feruchemy, sorry.
Yeah. But all the magic that's on Cell is a blend of devotion and dominion.
Because to get any of the magics to work, you have to be incredibly devoted. Yeah. But all the magics appear to be a way of exerting your will over something else. Because the scamp system would seem to fit into dominion.
It really would, yeah. But it is interesting because obviously there is possible infinite variety on Cell, whereas in some of the other worlds we've seen there's always like a very strict number of possible powers, whereas here anything you could imagine and devote your life to could be a magic.
Yeah, but I mean, we know at least now that like in this world, any kind of form-based magic, any symbol, regardless of what you do, if you want the magic to work, you have to make a symbol of some sort.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I mean, Elantris was technically his first proper novel. Sanderson's first proper novel.
First published novel, yes.
First published novel.
Yes, because there are other ones that we are not allowed to see.
Yes, which he wrote during his degree, I believe. But first published novel, Elantris. It's a more straightforward story.
Yes.
But has hints to a much bigger story.
Yes.
It rewards reading it if you know what's going on. Emperor's Soul, written a lot later, set in the same world. Clearly, there's some room for expansion.
Yes, and I believe there is plans for an Elantris 2.
Yes.
But there presumably have been plans for an Elantris 2 for at least a decade now.
Well, yeah, it's not like he isn't writing 15 other things at once. Like, he clearly is not short of ideas.
But we have seen characters from Elantris, or at least we believe we have seen characters from Elantris turn up in Stormlight.
Well, another
Sanderson's.
Books, yeah.
And Stormlight is one that definitely rewards having read all the other Sanderson novels before you get there.
I mean, like, it seems like a lot to take in. It kind of was a shock when we learned there was more to all this, and I love it. Like, you know, very moments.
It was an incredible. Like I said, I hadn't read Elantris when I found that out, and actually, it's like I saw this interview, and someone put their hand up and quite innocently asked, "Who is Hoyd?" Half the room burst into laughter. Sanderson just kind of awkwardly said in this interview, "Who here doesn't know who Hoyd is?" So the other half of the room put their hands up. And he went on to explain that there is a character that is in every single one of his novels, and his name is Hoyd. And in some of them he's a larger part, and some of them he's not. In Elantris, he is a beggar that Serene uses to smuggle stuff into Elantris.
Okay.
And it's just a throwaway little line that she names him Hoyd.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't appear to do anything else. But it turns out that Hoyd is everywhere.
Yeah.
And Hoyd knows what's going on everywhere.
So, yeah, it's Pandora's box.
Yes.
And, there is a lot to reward reading. But, I mean, I guess ostensibly we're talking about... We've got a bit off topic.
A little bit, maybe.
And to be fair, we're going to be covering a lot of Sanderson stuff, I'd imagine.
So, yes.
And we could probably do a whole episode entirely on the connections, linking all the books.
It might be fun, actually. So we're starting at this point, and it's like, there aren't any connections, because this is where it started. It even says on the front of the book, "Discover where the magic began." That's the tagline for this book.
Yeah, I guess. I often wonder if he even told the publishers what he was doing.
I mean, I wonder if he would get away with it. Is it like Walking Dead situation where it's like you need to tell them something different? And if it didn't work out, and if Elantris hadn't sold well and he'd never really published another novel, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, I don't think I from what I at least have seen in the comics industry, I cannot imagine that. I think that would come across as overly ambitious. I think for a first novel, I don't think you would pitch it to a publisher as saying it's the beginning of a 51 book series, all spread across different worlds which are all connected.
Yes.
In this age, post-Marvel Avengers, I'm sure people will go for that. I commend him.
This is very much Marvel Avengers, or Marvel Avengers is very much Cosmere.
It's the Avengers of the fantasy world. I commend him for sneaking that in under the radar, and also perhaps for being able to tell good standalone stories, which you don't need to know about the bigger picture.
Well, yes, because my sister, who is not a big reader in general, has read Elantris and very much enjoyed it, and she's read Mistborn and very much enjoyed it. She doesn't really care about the connections, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It works fine. If you want to find them, they're there. And particularly, I would not recommend anyone read Stormlight without having read
which is his kind of magnus opus.
Yeah, this is his 10-book
That's the daft
epic
one, which is going to just kill us all, because it's gigantic.
Oh god, each book is a weapon. I mean, I've only actually got the first one in real life. I have the second one on Kindle, simply because the first one takes up a good chunk of a shelf.
Okay, well,
but yeah.
I guess if we dial back the Cosmere,
yes,
focusing entirely on Elantris, which of course you do not need to know about the bigger picture.
No.
First book, I mean, what are your final thoughts on Elantris, as ignoring all the other things? What do you think of this book?
Elantris is a lovely modernist take on the classic fantasy story. There's a prince and a princess, and a marriage, and a magic city, and a big, scary empire off in the distance threatening everybody's life. But everything in it is just slightly twisted by a few degrees, and I really like that. Like, just Serene is not quite the perfect princess. Rowden is not quite the spoilt prince. The king is a crazy person. It's but not the standard wahahaha sit in a big castle kind of crazy. He's the more common crazy of someone who's had a lot of power and a lot of responsibility thrust on him and doesn't really know how to handle it and is trying to find his way through. And I really like that about it. It is, like I said, I thought it was generic. It's not generic, but it's still classic.
Would you say it paved the way for a lot of what we see in Sanderson books now? Are there Sanderson tropes which you
There are definitely Sanderson tropes. A few classic ones of strong female characters who are either the lead or the secondary character. And I mean strong female characters not in terms of physical strength, but in terms of you understand everything about their motivations, everything about their personalities, and everything they do makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's hard enough to do for some writers in any kind of character situation, but it seems to be particularly hard for some people to do with female characters, I find.
I'm trying to think now. I can't honestly think of an instance where any of his characters have been damseled. Characters have been in peril,
Yeah.
be they male or female, but they've never been helpless or useless. Yeah.
No, don't believe they have.
And even characters who maybe...
I believe Serene gets damseled for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then she kicks someone in the face.
Yeah, he's very good. Like it's kind of frustrating in a way where you have to point out where someone writes, and I'm using heavy air quotes, strong female characters to basically just mean he just writes decent characters.
He does. He writes decent characters, and some of them happen to be female.
Yeah, it's entirely irrelevant.
But yeah, he also he very much likes to subvert certain particular fantasy tropes. Like there's never any elves or anything. It's like he's not an elves and dwarves kind of guy, but there might be other races that have certain abilities, but then they're not cardboard cut out.
It's a very
sort of.
It's always a very kind of human form of fantasy.
Yes.
Like the drama, the magics are always wild and fantastic, but it's never like the elves and the dwarves and the underdeep. It's very much like...
I mean, I don't believe there is another, apart from the Seons, if you count Seons.
Yeah,
there isn't another sentient species in this apart from...
I don't think a lot of his books do they?
Stormlight Archive does.
Yeah, which is actually something for another day, because that's very cool, yeah.
But, and I guess Mistborn does.
Yes, that's true, actually, but they're very different.
But they are very different. They're not the standard, like I said, dwarves and elves.
Yeah.
They are interesting characters. Elantris doesn't have another sentient species apart from the Seons.
So, would you say another trope, Sanderson trope, religion?
He does do a lot with religion, yes.
He's seen it from a lot of different angles, I think.
And there are actually a lot of religions, it's suggested there are a lot of religions in here that you don't see.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, obviously we have the Shus. So we have Shu Keseg, Shu Korath, Shu Dereth, which are the main ones. There's also Jeska, which plays a minor part in it. Slightly more major later on, but is considered to be extinct because the only country it was practiced in has been taken over by Fjordell.
Oh, it's just like a throwaway comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And there's the Jeska Mysteries, or the Jeskari Mysteries, which is some sort of, like, degenerate version of the Jeska religion, which has kind of managed to cling on in a few places, and a lot of people we do meet one person who practices Jeska, and he's quite insulted that the Jeskari mysteries are now considered to be what's left of his religion.
So it's like an ancient proud religion being turned into like a kind of Hollywood fad.
Yes, yeah, it's the mysticism. People who don't fully understand the religion have taken the mystical part of it and are trying to practice that without the actual core of the religion. And I think there are some others that are mentioned, but I can't remember the names offhand. Everyone does appear to believe in one god here, which is interesting. Jeska believes in a life force that motivates people to do things. That's their kind of god. They don't believe it has a mind necessarily. It's a thing that's there and it creates everything.
So what about, I guess, another trope which began here is the magic systems. Because Sanderson is known... I would say now for in each of his books having a very strong internally logically consistent magic base.
And there are always trope numbers and mathematics involved. Like, he really likes threes, triads. And actually, I noted down, I was doing a bit of research about this book, and this book is actually written in threes. It is written on the triad system, apparently. There are 3 parts to it, and each set of 3 chapters comes from one point of view.
Yes.
So you jump in 3 chapter blocks between characters,
interesting
and there
point.
are 3 main plot lines going on. But yes, and on a grander scale, there's his theory of the 3 realms, which are not explicit in Elantris, but we do see certain aspects of it.
Yeah. But do you think I'm just kind of I'm just playing like devil's advocate here now, but do you think, like, in reading a Sanderson book, is it ever an obstacle where the magic gets in the way of the plot, where it becomes, oh, here's a new Sanderson book and we have to now work out what the magic is going to be? It's like someone will say, oh, I'm using one of these 10 forms of magic, and then it becomes more of a kind of like a Pokédex. You're just trying to collect all the different forms of magic.
There's maybe a certain aspect of that sometimes. I think not in Elantris, because the magic is so central to the plot that there's no way that the exposition about the magic could possibly get in the way, because it's the characters learning about it themselves.
Well, this one probably goes into the least detail of magic in his books.
But I'd say particularly sticking to kind of the least detail end of the scale, Warbreaker, I felt, had a really...
Another book.
This is a different book, by Sanderson. The magic system in Warbreaker, which was based around shapes and colours. I felt that kind of got in the way of things. Like, they were kept... Again, you know that all the rules are in place, but I felt like they were almost at odds with the plotline that was trying to carry on. I mean, I've said before that Warbreaker is probably my least favourite of the Sanderson novels. I just felt it's not as well put together as others, and that was a situation where it felt like he had a magic system that he needed to get in, and the plot line was almost kind of secondary to that. But then, things like, again, the Stormlight Archive, which the magic system in there is enormous. Like, I think at the moment we're working on the theory that there are 3 different shards.
Yeah,
so 3 different bases for a magic system there. And then each magic system has, like, 10 aspects. And that is almost like gotta catch 'em all. It's, you and I have sat in the car having long discussions about what X character can do and what Y character can do.
Oh, and this, I like... It's
but the thing is, I love that.
Yeah, well, it's why I'm playing devil's advocate here, because I really enjoy it as well. And I feel it really ticks on my... it's pressing on my buttons. Like, I love this... trying to work out the logic of the world, and knowing that it does make sense, and knowing he's given a lot of thought to it.
So I remember the opening to Mistborn in particular, where an awful lot of seemingly normal words like push and pull had capital letters on them for no reason that you could figure out, and people were doing dramatic like aerial gymnastics and things for no reason that you could quite work out, but there was that feeling that it would make sense.
Okay.
And that's the important thing, I think. It's not like he's pulling things out of his arse here.
So if Elantris was the prototype...
Yes.
What, what are the points that make a Sanderson book?
Okay.
What could you, how would you sell it to someone? It like 5 points or whatever, 6 points.
Strong characters, distinct, clear plot lines.
Yeah.
Incredible magic systems. And lots of potential geekery. Like, I mean, there is a hell of a lot of potential for theorising, and I love theorising.
Also, perhaps very big on religious and political commentary.
Yes.
It's not satirical.
No.
It's never like, oh, look at this. Oh, isn't it a dark mirror in which we reflect our own twisted lives? It's more like...
It is interesting because Sanderson himself is a religious man, from what I understand. He was in the UK a few weeks ago, and I follow him on Twitter, and he was complaining a little bit about being able to find a Church of the Latter-day Saints in Manchester.
Yeah.
So, a Mormon, he lives in Utah, so it's a pretty strong Mormon. But at the same time, his religions are loving, It's not a parody. It's simply this is an aspect that's clearly so important to his life. He can't imagine his characters not having.
But you pointed out as quite a good thing because, like, you don't get religious parallels in a lot of fantasy books because you live in a practical fantasy world in which the concept of the impossible and the metaphysical is actually the science of that world. So it's something I like, and there's always he's very balanced.
Yes,
I think is the best way. There's always. He never falls blindly on one side. There's always characters on each side of a debate which generally give very good points and answers.
There's very rarely someone who's just the embodiment of evil. Even when we've seen just the guy who's just the embodiment of evil, he's not.
I got to say, like, very good characterizations. He's always very good at kind of turning things on its head. And he kind of, I'd say, brings a slightly different outlook, a way of looking at these stories as well.
And often his stories just involve taking a standard setting or a standard plot and trope and tweaking one aspect of it, which I don't think he really does here so much. Like, this is... He tweaks individual things here and there, so the characters are slightly what you wouldn't expect. Even the evil guy is balanced and has reasons for what he's doing and clear motivations. Whereas, like Mistborn, he's famously said, is a fantasy heist novel.
Yes.
Warbreaker is a fantasy realm on a tropical island.
Yeah, so he's very much kind of like, here's an idea, we're going to flip it around, do it a bit differently. Like, this wasn't my first Sanderson book.
No, as I said, it was my last Sanderson book, it was at the time.
Well, Mistborn...
He's released more since then.
The Mistborn trilogy were my first ones, which I absolutely loved, and I came to Elantris later, and I think you could tell that it was his first book.
Yes.
Like, it's a fine story. It's very good. I think... this is interesting. Like, it's not the best Sanderson book.
Yeah.
I feel that if it were the only book he'd ever written, it would still stand kind of, I'd say, head and shoulders above most of the fantasy books on the shelf.
Yes, I would say that, yeah.
It's a clever book. It's surprisingly simple. For all the plot was complex, as we talked about.
Yes, we took quite a while to do
as long as it took us to describe a plot, like, it's straightforward.
Yeah.
And... it's easy to read. It's light. It doesn't it's not a massively hefty tome.
Well, I mean, some people might call this...
As fantasy books go.
I mean, as epic fantasy, because technically this is part of an epic fantasy series.
It's definitely not high fantasy, though, which is quite nice.
Well, I don't know, is it? There are castles and princesses and empires and
I don't know.
magic.
It's not... It doesn't feel that way. It feels very modern.
Yes, I think it's modern high fantasy.
Celine, it's not dark fantasy. It's not high fantasy. Yeah, it's definitely fantasy.
Yes. There is no science fiction in this whatsoever.
But very modernist. Like, it's kind of like he's looking back on fantasy tropes and intentionally subverting them. I think I enjoyed this book. Like, I do love Sanderson's work. I think occasionally... there are certain things about some of his books which are a little bit, I want to say, like, maybe cutesy, which kind of annoy me a little bit. Very minor complaints, because I think 99% of the books are exceptional.
Yeah. Like, just occasionally, two characters will have banter.
And it's
banter. It reads like a Friends episode or something.
Yeah.
Every character in this interchange is saying exactly the right thing to get to the next.
Yeah, and this is a weird thing, and it's funny you mentioned banter because it's something I've noticed in all of his books now. I won't bat an eyelid at any of the dialogue; it's all great. But the moment the characters are fooling around, for some reason, it feels very forced.
Yes,
seems like a minor complaint, but it's something that's also like he presents a lot of different ideas and themes, certainly about religion in this book.
Yes,
and I find sometimes they verge towards being a little oversimplistic. Sometimes he balances things pretty well, but sometimes it's a bit kind of this scene is a thinly veiled kind of commentary on religion kind of thing. Like, it's like these two characters are really just spokespeople for different worldviews kind of thing.
And there is that aspect, but at the same time, I feel he's quite good about weaving exposition into the plot, rather than actually just having that scene where there's like omnipotent narrator comes down and explains the world to you.
Yeah.
Which has sometimes been done very well.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Wheel of Time always starts with the same structure of sentence, which sets up everything and tells you where you are and which people are there, and then the story starts. And Pratchett kind of plays it for laughs.
Yeah.
Like, quite often in his books, he will have a complete aside where it's not a character in the story talking in any way, and just he will directly talk to you about some concept that we are now looking at. And, it's forgiving, but I think Sanderson's very good at weaving it in, and sometimes it slips. Sometimes there is just, you have to have that character that doesn't know something, and the only reason that character is there is so that this thing can be explained to them.
He's not an especially flowery writer. Which I think is why I wouldn't define it as high fantasy, because it doesn't have that kind of...
It's not got the Tolkien-esque...
Well, I want to say, I'm not sure if the phrase...
Paragraphs of description about beards.
Well, here's the thing, it's like, Pratchett, one example you brought up, he's a humorist.
Yes.
He's also a very good writer. You look at
the present tense.
Sadly, yes. He was a very good writer. You look at something like Tolkien, kind of what you think of high fantasy. It's got that kind of high camp veil to it, which is like, it's not a phrase that gets used very often, but when you say it, you know what it means.
Yeah.
There's a certain pomp and circumstance to it. There's flowing robes. It's like...
Yeah, Sanderson is very much... His characters talk like normal people talk now. They don't go into the forsooth and privy and,
So you're never going to get... I don't know, this is weird. Like, okay, how about this? If you're reading a Sanderson book, I doubt you're ever going to get a phrase or a paragraph or a section which could be described as poetry. You're not going to get a section of writing which is kind of like, you pause and you think, wow, that was a feat of the English language. But at the same time, I think his writing is very functional.
Yes.
But I think he can capture some very powerful ideas. Like, I've been very moved by stuff in Sanderson books.
I think it's the way thing. It's like, we've had this discussion before with other people saying the point of writing is to be a form of telepathy. It's to get the ideas from your head into my head with as little intervening mess as possible. And I think that's something he's very good at.
Yeah, because I think you could have... The alternative would be having incredibly flowery language and saying nothing important. I think he has very functional writing. Yeah. But that means he's very good at getting some good ideas across.
Yes.
Like, the writing is not flowery, it's not overly... it doesn't use long words and kind of like Shakespearean language. It just does the job.
Yeah. Will Self would hate this book.
Will Self would hate this book. And I like some Will Self, but I've read some Will Self... I've tried to read some Will Self books which were unreadable.
Yeah.
Good grief, yeah.
When you have to check every other word with a thesaurus. Yeah. But then again, I mean, I think something he fell into with Elantris more than other books is he does fall into the trap of unpronounceable fantasy names. Yeah, as we demonstrated with you trying to read the back of the book.
Yeah, he does it a bit less.
Yes.
He falls maybe, like, what do you fall on? Yeah. You say, like, this is the king of this land and the people of this land practice magic.
Yeah. Or
the other thing is you say, he is the duoden of this land and the people practice the Shamsdod or something like that. They mean the same...
I love the Shamsdod.
The Shamsdod, but they mean the same thing.
Yes.
There's like a kind of writerly shorthand where you don't need to throw in fancy words. He is big on capitalising words.
Very much so, yes. I wonder if his caps lock is stuck on occasionally.
Yeah, it's title case. It's like, it's like people could be fighting and they will go like, he pushed him away, but then he pushed him away.
Yes,
and it's like push. Oh, that's magical shorthand for...
Yeah.
So, like I said... Functionally written.
Yes.
But hot damn does it get some good ideas across.
I think that's a pretty good pretty good summary of Elantris.
I think that's what we could all aspire to, really. Like if I could write something which gets a damn good idea across, if I can have the best damn idea in the world and then tell it well, that's better than having an awful idea but telling it in a really powerful way. If that makes sense. I'd rather have a good idea and get it across than have a mediocre idea but dress it up in flowery language.
That's saying that, yes, I agree, yes. I mean, I've read some stuff with some flowery language and it can be nice at times. Like you say, it's like reading poetry. Just you enjoy the structure of it. But sometimes you just want to read a damn book. And you've only got, an afternoon to do it. I'm not sure you'd be able to get through Elantris in an afternoon, but this takes me 2 or 3 days to read Elantris in a couple of sittings. And it's like comfort food, but it's comfort food that's good for you.
Yeah.
It's like carrots and hummus or something.
Carrots and hummus.
This is the carrots and hummus of the fantasy world.
It's like
okay, I'm not quite
first world reading. Okay, so I guess how would you summarize it? How would you wrap it up? How would you recommend it?
I would recommend Elantris as it's a good book for anyone who is perhaps slightly fed up with the standard tropes of fantasy and really wants to find something new in the genre. It's a great book for all ages as well. I mean, it seems strange to specify that, but in a world of Game of Thrones, you may have to specify that. I would quite happily give this book to a 10-year-old.
Yeah, it's like some complex themes, but nothing unsuitable.
Yeah, there's nothing in here that's gonna, send them off, ravaging their brains with porn or something. It's, when you're over 18 and you want to do that, that's fine. But don't give it to a 10-year-old. I've happily recommended this book to people who don't generally like high fantasy, because it is quite easy to get into. The story is strong and rattles along at a fair old pace. There's no real dead space in this book. Something is happening all the time. So I would say it is a very fine novel, and it's well worth anyone's time.
I would agree. I'd say it is, if you are tired of elves and dwarves, and you want a book which is inventive, creative, makes you think, takes fantasy in different directions, I would recommend this book. It isn't the best Sanderson book out there, but it's better than a lot of other things.
Yes.
So, yeah, highly recommend
Pleasingly
it.
mediocre. It is high mediocre.
Oh, is that fair? Is that damning? Is that
I don't know.
Damning with faint praise?
Might be.
It's good.
It is good.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's not exceptional, but it's very good.
Yes.
It's very, very good. So I guess that's Elantris.
I guess that is Elantris, and I have no idea how long we've been rambling on for.
Well, it's a good length.
This is the first of the first chair fantasy podcasts. We'll hopefully be doing this on a reasonably regular basis for a different book. Hopefully not just Sanderson.
Yeah, this is your baby. I'm just along for the ride.
Yeah, and I'll see if I can drag a variety of different voices in to be terrorised by my love of fantasy novels.
Be the second chair.
Yeah, be the second chair.
I've enjoyed being the second chair.
Oh,
it's been fun.
How is the second chair? Is it comfy?
It's comfy, actually, yeah.
Oh, good.
How about we just say, we are Big Punch Studios. We make comics. We make After I Think. We make Seven String. We make Big Punch Magazine. And we do entertaining things like this. And if you like what we're doing, please do feel free to support us. We're on Patreon. It's www.patreon.com/Big Punch Studios. Links will be in the description. And yeah, you can also check out all the stuff we do at our website, www.bigpunchstudios.com.
And we hope to see you in the future for many more of the Big Punch Podcast Network podcasts. It's a tautology, isn't it? We need to...
Tautology. Yeah. The Big Punch Network.
The Big Punch Podcast. I might have broken.
Should we sign out?
Let's. Bye.
Bye.